about skateboarding, but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood. Grab skateboarding, grab skateboarding podcast.
Hello and welcome to the Crap Skateboarding Podcast, a weekly dive into skateboarding for the average skater, hosted by myself, James.
And me, Jack.
In this podcast, two distinctly average skaters chat to skaters from all around the UK who represent a huge range of different aspects of our chosen sport, from the weird and wonderful to the truly talented.
God, James, that was a far sexier intro. Well done. Each week, we will be discussing a range of exciting topics regarding skateboarding in these uncertain times. Mine's crap now. I need to update it.
Well, that's in the title, isn't it? And this week, Jack, our crap topic is...
Drum roll, please.
Was that switch?
And we are joined this week by the founder of Was That Switch skateboarding company, Francis. Hello, Francis.
How's it going, guys? Sorry, I had to like almost mute myself, just trying to contain my laughter from that intro. It's so good.
Ah, shucks.
I need to start muting every time I laugh, because honestly, it's getting ridiculous. Everyone else is finding it funny. And welcome to the show, Francis. Thank you for taking the time to come join us.
No, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure to be here.
Francis, thank you so much for joining us. Could you tell us a little bit about yourselves and just a brief overview of Was That Switch and what it is, and just give us the spiel.
Yeah, certainly. So I'll give a little bit of background of me in skateboarding, and that will sort of lead on to the reason why I sort of set up the company. So I sort of started skating when I was 10 years old. I'm 33 now. I had a Bart Simpson skateboard, and it was the coolest thing in the world when I first started skateboarding, but obviously didn't have any interest of doing it properly when I first started. And very similar to probably most of the people who you've spoken to, and obviously yourselves. On Christmas, my dad bought me a PlayStation 1 with Gran Turismo and Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, the first one. And as you've mentioned on previous podcasts, very similar. I watched the end skate videos for most of the skaters to death, and then that sort of led me on to sort of picking up a real skateboard. The first skateboard I ever got was a Ronnie Krieger blind setup with Spitfire wheels. I can't remember the trucks.
Decent setup.
Best thing I've ever sort of like had in my life. I've recently just got a blind board as well. A bit of nostalgia because I saw it in a shop. I usually do buy sort of UK independent brands, but I saw that board and I had to do it. So I sort of skated until the age of 24, but unfortunately I fell down a cliff. I fell 50 foot when I was walking with my wife in the Brecon Beacons, and I fell 50 foot. I broke my pelvis in 3 places. I fractured the base of my spine and punctured my right lung. So that, as you can imagine, stopped me from skateboarding for a while.
Wow.
And 12 weeks before I was set to get married and walk down, fortunately for me, the way that my pelvis broke, it healed itself and I managed to walk down the aisle, which is great. So that put me out of skateboarding for 8 to 9 years. And it wasn't until the last lockdown, the first lockdown, when the UK went in with all the COVID-19 things, that I decided the only thing to sort of keep me mentally sane was probably to pick up a skateboard again. As you can imagine, I was very sort of scared to do so because I didn't know with regards to injuries, but I've been walking fine, I've been running fine. I've been to the gym a couple of times, so everything seemed to be fine. And yeah, basically like a duck to water, managed to relearn all the tricks that I used to know. And I think the mentality of me going into skateboarding at such a later age, I'm 33 now, my approach to skateboarding is so much different than when I was a teenager. I'm a lot more scared to jump down steps, big ledges, all that sort of stuff. But I think the way that I apply my knowledge to the tricks or the technical tricks has sort of vastly improved my nollie, my switch tricks and all that sort of thing. With regards to me setting up the company, what was that switch? It was sort of a brainchild of the group of skaters that I skate with. So on a regular basis, we'll be skating. There's 2 of us who do a lot of switch tricks. There's 2 of us who do a lot of nollie tricks. but we have a tendency of doing tricks either sloppily or in a switch stance, and one of us or a couple of us would sort of say out of the blue, oh, was that switch that you just did, was the trick switch? And somebody will either say, yeah, it was amazing, it's a switch kickflip, or it was a really, really bad regular kickflip that which looked switch. So that's where the idea of the company and the slogan came from, essentially. With regards to sort of setting up the company, it's something that I wanted to do for a very long time. So I've got sort of like the computer knowledge, the knowledge to set up a website and all those sort of things. And I've got a very sort of big interest in sort of design and technology. With regards to, I do a lot of artwork. I've got a massive portfolio. I've got paintings on the walls, obviously the listeners can't see. And I gave you two guys a quick tour of my room, which we're recording in, and I've done paintings on the wall. So the design aspect kind of came naturally to me. I did do a post on the UKSC site before I decided to set up my company of gauging opinions on, do people prefer logos on the front of t-shirts, on the backs of t-shirts, just to get a sort of a gauge of, because the last thing I wanted to do is just jump straight in and say, this is the design, and everybody go, well, that's pretty pants really, and obviously not get any customers. But we are in the process of having decks made as well, and those should be coming out soon. So that's a bit of background about me. I don't think a lot of people are aware of the injuries that I've had, but it's always good to talk about it, I guess.
No, absolutely. That's an incredible story. And the fact that you've managed to come back to it as well. I mean, there are so many people who would hesitate and maybe not go back to a sport that is known for, you know, the many different ways in which you can injure yourself, mostly minor injuries. But when you've had an injury of that nature, minor injuries can, you know, they can exacerbate what's already there. Considering that you have come back to it and got your tricks back, and to the point where you're doing them switch, is remarkable. Like,
yeah,
that's amazing.
To add insult to injury, when we first went into lockdown last year, I went into hospital again because I was in severe pain. I woke up one day, I was rocking in the bathroom, and my wife thought it'd be a good idea to phone 111. I went into to hospital. I had a CT scan and an X-ray, and I'm currently waiting on surgery because I have an internal abdominal tear, and my stomach, my liver, and my intestines are sat up behind my right lung. So basically, there's a hole in me somewhere, and all my organs are sort of free flowing around my body. So that's another thing. So.
Jeez, Francis.
Wow.
I mean, to be honest, man, like when most of us, when people say, oh, why, what, you know, when we ask people, and it's absolutely fair enough when we say, oh, why did you stop skateboarding? And it's, well, work and life and commitments, and then I felt too old or I was nervous. I think you possibly have the best excuse for having a bit of time out that we've ever had. I mean, that's but I mean, is there an element of course there's the side of it where it could exacerbate something that already exists. Mm-hmm. Is there the other side of it slightly, where when you've fallen down a 50-foot drop like that, actually what you're going to do on a skateboard pales slightly, you know, you could be considered, well, actually nothing will be as scary as that. I don't know.
I think that there might be a tendency to think that I'm like a bionic human. But obviously evidence states that I am brave. I think the main sort of thing that I go into sort of skateboarding now is it was the one thing beforehand which I did on a daily basis, which I never quit, if that makes sense. So there's multiple things. I've got guitars behind me that I probably pick up once a year. So obviously I could say that I started playing guitar, but I quit that. There's multiple sports that I quit, but skateboarding is the one thing that was always in the back of my mind, that if I wasn't skateboarding as a teenager, I was watching skate videos, I was making skate edits with my friends, or we were filming. Like if one of us was injured, one of us would have a camera in our hands. And through the 8-year period that I was off skateboarding, there was probably not a day where I didn't think of, I really wish I was skateboarding again. And I think the lockdown pushed a lot of people, especially people sort of a similar age to ourselves, back into the sport. Not just for sort of like a fitness aspect, but for sort of like a mental health aspect as well. Because there's the big sort of fundamental thing about skateboarding, which I find is it's a very social sport. and you could turn up at a skate park and not know anybody, and by the time you've gone home, you're giving everybody fist bumps with the tricks that you've done, or people are saying, are you coming to the skate park again? It'd be cool to see you again. And I think that is what's drawn me to the sport again, more so than the possibility of maybe injuring myself again, if that makes sense.
Mm,
Yeah,
entirely.
absolutely. We've discussed this multiple times before. I think on most episodes this cropped up, doesn't it? The fact that you can turn up to a skate park, other skaters are there, and that will psych you up, and in turn, you psych them up, and you sort of feed off each other, and that pushes you to do maybe more complex things, or make you a bit braver, and make you more willing to do stuff. But also, you chat to people, you know, and you walk around the street. You go to shops and gyms and go an hour, 2 hours out talking to a single person. If you go to a skate park, there's a few skaters there at the very least. Somebody's going to say hello at the very least.
Oh yeah,
and you will absolutely be chatting to people, you know, within 10 minutes of being there.
I think it's because for the most part, it's not competitive, right? Like it's a sport to an extent, but it's also so individualistic. So we all get hyped to see each other and what we're doing and challenge each other, but no one's a threat to anyone.
Where's your go-to stomping ground? Where would you normally be found skating?
So I'm based in Gloucester. As I mentioned before, I grew up in Bristol. So my main stomping grounds when I was a teenager was sort of what's considered the skate mecca of the UK. So I used to go up to College Green on a Saturday to do my warm-up and take a casual skate down to Lloyd's after that. So that's basically my old stomping ground. Since I got older, the last thing I can imagine is jumping down that 3-set. Because the scariest thing, it looks, the older you get, the bigger that set looks.
Have you ollied it?
Me once. I only ever ollied it once. So I've done a few tricks off the top platform, but yeah, only ollied it once and don't think I'll ever do it.
That's a tick box though, isn't it? Of skating big spots in the UK, ollieing the Lloyd set, that's up there with ollieing the South Bank set.
Oh yeah, without a doubt. The only dilemma is I never got it on film. So if I could ever go back and pluck up the courage to do it again, I think that would be on my bucket list of things to do. But
you know, man. You know you've done it.
Because I live in Gloucester, there's a skate park about 3 minutes away called Cooper's Edge. If you've ever seen any of my videos on the group, then you've probably seen me skate there. There's one in the centre of Gloucester, which is an incredible skate park, but it's in the very worst location you can put a skate park, unfortunately, because it's in quite a rough area. But the one that I'm sort of frequenting the most, there's a skate park called Longford Skate Park, which is built up in a new estate. It's only recently been built, but it's got the best manual pad and the best ledge you could skate and the best flat bank as well. It's really small. It only comprises of those 3 elements, but it's rarely busy. The concrete's really smooth as well. So we're kind of sport for choice, but we don't have anything crazy. But 20 minutes down the road, there's Cirencester Skate Park as well. And that's, if you want to be amazed by some pro skateboarders on a Saturday, if you ever get a chance to go to Cirencester Skate Park, there's a local skate shop in Cirencester called Decimal. And they have, I don't know how many pros are on their shop team, but those guys are incredible. It's one of those scenarios which a lot of people have probably been in. If you ever go to a skate park and you're having a really great time, and then a group of 4 kids turn up and you kind of like size them up, you sort of check what board they've got, and you kind of think, all right, these guys might be all right. And then 30 seconds later, you're sat down for 2 hours just watching these guys absolutely not out of fear or embarrassment, but you just sort of, when you see it on a video, it's one thing. You can see what Eric Costin sort of back nose blunting a rail, but when you see somebody do that trick in real life, you're in absolute awe.
It does knock you, doesn't it? Because we grew up in Cornwall, and in Cornwall there are a couple of pro riders, the Smith twins, Jodie and Leo Smith, and they used to go to Mount Hawk and Truro Skate Plaza quite a lot.
Didn't they own SJ Skate Park? Was that?
Yeah, so they had SJ Skate
shop,
Park. Yeah, those guys, Stu Titmus as well. We put out a really good video a few years back, which I've still got on DVD actually. And I'd be skating, and obviously at that point I was 16, 17, probably the best I've ever will be. And then, I'm like eyeing up a 10 set, ollieing it, happy with that and things. And they come up and like warm up on the mini ramp, and then before you know it, they're throwing frontside flips, backside flips, and doing like varial heels over bins that I can just about ollie. And you just think, like, I thought I was good, and then you see that and you just go, yeah, nah. Now that is something else.
But I think the one thing that's great about that sort of skateboarding is not only is it subjective, but there's always going to be tricks that you can do that people at that level probably can't do. So because of that fact, and everybody has started at the same level as well, you'll get that sort of camaraderie of, even if you're trying to kickflip for an hour and they're doing, like you say, a varial hill flip over a bin the size of a bus, if they see you sort of trying, more likely once you've done that kickflip, the skate park will erupt because they know how hard you're trying, because everybody's been at that stage as well, which is the great thing about skateboarding, I think.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. Francis, speaking of your journey into skateboarding and
Yes.
where you grew up and all of those things, I am compelled to ask you from an earlier conversation we had. I'm very excited about the prospect of having our first crap skateboarding podcast beef, because we're not the show that tends to have beef. So I'm really excited about this. I'm gonna hand this out.
I didn't know when this was going to crop up, but I knew it was going to crop up. So, for you guys who haven't listened to the podcast, I urge you to go back and listen to all the episodes. So, I'm a massive podcast guy. I listen to podcasts on a daily basis. I work long shifts, and the only thing to keep me sane during my job is listen to podcasts. So once you guys sort of invited me on the podcast, I thought I'd probably better sort of swat up on what's going on with the podcast. So over the past week and a half, I've binged every episode, so listen to them. I do want to give a massive shout out to the UK FC guys for the episode that they did. It was very humbling experience to give for them to give me the praise that they gave me. If you are part of that group, I didn't start the group. I am an admin in the group, and I do a lot of sort of like the moderation, a lot of the art, and sort of take control of the competition side. So it was great to hear those guys give me praise for that. But the elephant in the room is, I think it was either episode 4 or episode 5. Ronan was his name?
Rowan.
Yeah. So I grew up in Thornbury in Bristol. I skated for pretty much all of my teenage years, apart from when we obviously travelled to the city centre. And I recall that he said he went to Thornbury Skate Park and he said that everybody there was dickheads. So, that's technically the beef. But for all I know, obviously I haven't been there for 10 years, so it may have turned into an absolute sort of state. That's my homeland. I filmed like a 45-minute skate video at that park.
I'd just like to point out. Rowan thinks everybody is a dickhead. So
That's fine. That's fine. So if that's the
way I read this is, we all heard it here. So, Rowan, if you're listening, it's on.
the only reason I wanted to bring it up, because there could be more people from Thornbury really heartbroken and not have the opportunity to sort of write in and sort of complain about it. So yeah, if we ever meet at a skate park, then
honestly, it just makes me so happy.
We're an inclusive podcast. We wouldn't want anyone to feel like they're being called dickheads, but sometimes it's hard to keep a lid on Rowan. He's got his opinions.
to be honest with you, like because I grew up there, obviously there's a bit of bias, but he is probably true in what he said, because we got a lot of trouble in our youth. So
to be honest, I stand by none of it. I just thought, really, I'm using this public thing now as an opportunity to embarrass my friends. So that's so thank you for indulging me in that.
That's fine.
We have had some other wonderful people on who've got their own companies, namely in terms of UK independent skate companies. We've recently had Onda Skateboards on, who are wonderful guys, and
amazing company, yeah.
Oh, the best guy, but their real focus seems to be on their community, their sort of North London community, and really promoting that community and bringing those kids up, and it's a really wonderful thing. And it seems like a slightly different approach to how possibly you're doing it, because I might be wrong, but it looks like you've built a team, like you've kind of almost from the outside it looks like you've kind of found people who fit the bill for your team. And I was wondering if you could explain how you've gone about building a team and what your process has been, and for example, do you have a kind of style in mind that you find people who fit the bill, or is it more the other way around? Do you find people who you just like to watch to skate and then kind of build the brand around that, or what's your approach to building a team?
So from the answer to your original question, I think it's a bit of both. Before we continue, if you guys aren't following FaZe SB on Instagram, he was on your show. I'd suggest you follow him. He's a really good lad. Posts videos
Wonderful
of
guy.
helping kids to skate parks and stuff like that. So, but yeah, I'm not talking about other people now. So yeah,
FaZe, to be honest, if you're going to talk about anyone, FaZe is the absolute best. He's great.
Top lad, isn't he?
Yeah. But yeah, so with regards to sort of a team aspect, obviously the company itself is fairly new. It's obviously been stewing for around about a year, but as you can imagine, things like finances take control, and then you have to find the manufacturers and all that sort of thing. As I mentioned before, the decks are being made. But with regards to the team, 3 of them are obviously the closest skaters to my heart anyway, because I skate with them on a regular basis. So I would obviously be biased towards those guys. Skate level and style, they're exactly the same style as I skate. As when we skate as a group, it's hard to differentiate our styles in that sense, but we do have our own sort of tricks that we go to. Some of us are more transition based, and some of us are more technical, like myself. You wouldn't see me in a half pipe. That's one thing, or a mini ramp. I'm absolutely scared of that transition, but it involves flipping my board around on my feet. That's fine. But we did reach out to some other skaters. The 2 skaters that we decided to sponsor initially going forwards, Sean being one from the Isle of Wight. You may have seen his tricks on the group. He is part of the UKSC group, and he's the sort of guy that reminded me of the way that I skated when I was younger, where I would throw myself down any set possible, try a rail if there was a rail in front of me. So his style and his approach to skateboarding sort of really sort of attracted me to him. And we also have Beth Howells on our team as well, and she's an incredible skater. So she is from Ross in Forest of Dean, and her local skate park is Hereford Skate Park. So if you haven't followed her on Instagram, if you check out beth.howells, and her transition skating is amazing. So I think me not being able to do any transition skating and seeing a female skater at the level that she's at, she recently was a competitor in the GB Championships the other week. That was on BBC Sport.
I watched that, yeah.
It was amazing. She came 5th, but she did really well. She's got like the best backside disaster you've ever seen, and she did this incredible boneless in the competition. So we were really, really, really proud of her at the time, what she did. But it's always good to have sort of a diverse team as well. So having a female on the team, female skateboarding when we were kids is probably something that you rarely saw. I think the only sort of pro skater in the mainstream was Alyssa Streamer. And the only reason we saw her maybe was because of if you ever had a Toy Machine video or you play Tony Hawk's. But because I know it's a controversial topic, and I think you've mentioned it before, but because the skateboarding is becoming an Olympic sport now, the reach it has for loads of different demographics is infinite, essentially. So you can see a lot of girls picking up skateboarding now. People like Sky Brown are amazing influence. Obviously, you've got Letitia and other girl skateboarders like that, which they're so mainstream. It's hard to ignore their talent, if that makes sense. So some people don't disagree with the way that they sort of approach their marketing or things like that, but there's no denial that they have talent. And the fact that it's so easy to put it in front of you now, everybody's got a screen in front of them. Back in the day when we started skating, YouTube didn't even exist.
The BBC coverage of that skateboarding was fantastic. Now, obviously, they've not done something like this before, and like the way they labelled it on iPlayer was hilarious. Like, it was literally just skateboarding, coverage of skateboarding. Like, no, they clearly they had no idea what they're doing, and it was all a bit kind of hit and miss in how they're doing it because I've done it before. But the fact that you can go onto BBC and watch 14-year-old girls shred is incredible, because that's going to put that in front of so many households, so many other young women and other young, or just people in general who would never consider it to be a legitimate sport. If the BBC is showing it as a legitimized competition, that legitimizes the sport and brings in more and more people. And you've hit the nail on the head there. That I think I really enjoyed watching that. I just want to say that because I've not seen that in years on such a mainstream sort of channel, and it was a joy to watch. It was a really
I agree, man. And I think that, to be honest, we all moan about like kids on scooters and things like that. And actually, if we want to keep skateboarding alive, we've got to bring kids in. You've got to have a next generation, because if you just alienate people, then it will die. And I think it's
I think from obviously the previous podcasts of yours that I've listened to, there's been the following trend of sort of like the counterculture of the way that the skateboarding started, and obviously how it transitioned in sort of like the late 90s and early 2000s when we started skating. It was a very rebellious, I'm going to jump over this fence or whatever and skate the steps that even if I get thrown out, that sort of thing. But with it now becoming so sort of commercially viable, obviously the last thing you sort of want is the sport to sell out. But the problem being nowadays is it kind of needs that stepping stone of it being so mainstream for it to remain alive. And I think that's just the nature of the world nowadays. If it's not in the public eye and sort of being rammed down your throat, these sort of things may sort of eventually die out, because we saw the lull probably when most of us stopped skating, if we ever did, between those sort of periods of time that it wasn't that popular. And it wasn't until sort of street league skateboarding sort of brought it back into the mainstream, if you were aware of that, and sort of like the Berrics videos and things like that on YouTube. And obviously with Braille and other YouTube skateboarders, it's a new platform for people to be sort of aware of the sport. So some people may hate it, some people may disagree with the fact that it's in the Olympics, but you can't deny that there's going to be a new generation of skateboarders for years and years to come now.
What's your approach to marketing? How are you marketing your company?
So the only sort of way to do it at the moment is you can either do it free or you can pay for adverts. So there's no necessarily guarantee that you paying for an advert is going to get in front of the right people. It's all down to sort of it's all down to I can't even say that word.
Algorithms.
Algorithms. That's the one. It's all down to the way that the internet works, I should say.
Magic internet fairies, yeah.
Yeah, of course, yeah. Or you've got the word of mouth. The blessing and curse about social media is you can put an image in front of somebody or a video or an advert for free, but you need to find the right channels to place that in for it to be responsive to other people. So obviously I'm fortunate for being in the UKSC group. Obviously we do have strict rules about sort of self-promotion and things like that. Mainly it only happens on a Thursday. But the last thing I want to do is flood my brand on a page which I am very active in, because the last thing you want to do is rub people the wrong way. So with regards to, we post videos to Instagram. Obviously the sponsor skaters that we sponsor tag our company. But a lot of it is word of mouth. Obviously I'm an active skateboarder in the local skate box that I go to. Several of the skaters which I've seen, I don't necessarily personally hang out with, but they're aware of my presence, have bought the t-shirts, and I've given out sort of free things to them as well, free stickers and all this sort of stuff. So with that approach, it's the knock-on effect. I think with anything, you can either pay a lot of money to try and get it in front of people, or the main thing that I want to do is work my way organically. So I work full-time. I'm an aerospace engineer, so it's not about the money. It's more about the passion for the brand more so than anything else, because I'm not naive to think that I'm going to become the new Jeff Bezos over like a weekend or whatever. But if I can supply a UK independent brand to other UK skaters, more so than them going and buying I don't know why anybody would buy a t-shirt for £100, but I've seen people buy t-shirts for £100. But for that example, it's a win-win situation for each party, really. So
your brand at the moment, so obviously you've got your clothing and with the really cool designs that you've done for that. So what else have you got in the pipeline, or what else are you going to be doing? Hardware, or is it mostly just clothing for the moment?
Our decks are being made at the minute. I've just had an email from the manufacturer to say that they're in the printing process at the moment. So I've made quite a large bulk order, so the process time for them to be pressed and printed has taken longer than I had hoped for. It would be amazing if I could click my fingers and they'd then be here straight away, but these things take time to manufacture. So that's one thing that we've obviously got in the near distant future. Obviously, I'm in the process of designing a few new t-shirts, because we've only got white t-shirt designs at the minute, but most people that I skate with tend to prefer black t-shirts. But then there may be color variants as well of those designs, depending on what people sort of go for. So yeah, in the next coming month, hopefully the deck should be in, along with the black t-shirts as well. Once I decide on the design, I've got a few that I've sort of mocked up at the minute, and sort of posting to my skate guys just to see their opinions on them. Because I think the worst thing when you do any form of art is you are your worst critic. The amount of times that I've started a project, got halfway through, I've got a portfolio under. There's a sofa bed behind me, so if my wife is ever annoyed with me, I can pick my man cave. But yeah, there's a portfolio of work underneath, and most of the pictures that I've drawn are half finished. So the ones that do sort of get done get framed and put on my walls. So I think, yeah, that's the worst thing for me, is not only making a design that pleases me in a sense, but also would be an appealing to others on sort of like a mass market sort of aspect. So I think that's the main dilemma of doing everything myself, is everything that I do I would like, and I'll probably buy myself, but that doesn't necessarily mean that others will. So it's finding the happy balance, really.
Do you have like a theme? Because obviously we spoke to Onda recently, and they've got this Mexican theme, and the deck design is awesome. Yeah. And they've got that very sort of set theme. Honestly, when that deck comes out with the
I check on his website every day.
I want that deck.
That drops.
So what's have you got like a set theme, or are you more going towards different designs or different product drops, or what's kind of the vibe?
At the minute, with regards to the designs that we've got on the 3 t-shirts that are available on our website, they're a very sort of cohesive sort of design, with regards to them being sort of hand drawn, that sort of sketchy feel. With regards to going forwards, I probably would maintain that sort of art style, just because that's the natural way that I design things. I wasn't sort of painting when I first came out of the womb, but the way that I sort of tend to draw things is a very sort of pencil and pen on paper, black and white sort of theme. Like, it's only recently that I've sort of started using colours in my drawings and my paintings and things like that. I've always been sort of naturally gifted in the ways of sort of like drawing in that method. So if I can put that into my designs, then going forwards, if we can keep that sort of theme going along, that would be amazing. But obviously I'm always open to suggestions. One of my close skating buddies has designed a logo, which I'm probably going to transform into sort of like my sketch style. So that's something that we'd look to do. So similar to sort of what Onda was saying, they've got this image that's so appealing, like with regards to especially that new board that they said that they were designing, that when you go into a skate shop, then you see that deck and you're instantly appealed to it, and you'll instantly, even not being able to see the name of the company, you'll know straight away that that's them. So I think that's the approach that we want to go for to start with, is that sort of sketched design going with the sort of sketched sort of logo as well. And hopefully that will then run along going forwards. But we're, like I said, we're always open to change. So
you've got that hand-drawn style, and that's going to be what people identify your brand with. And like I said, just saying, Jack, I couldn't think of any kind of brands that had that similar niche or similar style. Obviously, Zero have got their skulls, and you see that skull, you know it's them. Toy Machine obviously got their logo. Enjoy, they've got their panda. You've got these boards, and you look at them, and you know immediately what they are. And I can't think of any brands that have that kind of, maybe Heroin, but they're a bit more graffiti art kind of thing, aren't they? Whereas your hand-drawn boards, it looks very much like you'd look at that and immediately go, yeah, is that a switchboard? Because it does sound, from the face of it, like a very striking design ethos.
Totally.
Obviously, you're a very media savvy guy. You've got, you know what you're doing with the media and video editing and photo editing things. And obviously, you've got a team. Are you yourself going to be, obviously, it's your company. As companies start up, they're one-man bands, really. You do everything, marketing, products, design, a lot. Are you going to be making an edit at some point? Are you going to be pulling out an edit with your riders, or what's any plans there at all?
Yeah, so every time we skate, I've got my cameras with me. So I think the eventuality we will do. I made a skate video when I was 14, and that process was probably the hardest thing I've ever done with regards to media, because back those days, it was when the digital camcorders first came out, but they were still using tape. So the way that it works is you film onto a tape, you plug it into your computer, but the only way to transfer that footage onto your computer was to physically watch that stuff, and then it would convert into a file. So yeah, that sort of got me into video editing to start off with. We made that full-length edit, and my dad, whilst he's also an aerospace engineer as well, but the fact that we both do that isn't actually connected. It's really weird. He, on the side, was a wedding photographer for 10 years. So some days when I was available, I went to be his sort of sidekick photographer to take sort of like the B-roll footage of people not paying attention to the camera, and those photos used to come out better than the post ones. But I spent all the time editing the photos for him. So I'm a dab hand at Photoshop. So if you guys have listened and have been on or a part of the UK FC group, you've probably seen that most of the stuff that is generated for the game of skate that we do, or anything else, is all done by my hand on Photoshop. So it's something that I do more as a hobby than as sort of like a job, which I probably should have gone into some form of like marketing or media production or something like that, but I kind of decided to get my hands dirty and be an engineer instead. But with regards to a team edit, it's going to be a long time coming, because as you can imagine, we take footage every time we skate, and most of the time we're doing it as a casual social thing, more so than go like 360 flip nose blood down that rail. Not that we're ever doing that, but we have got a skate trip as a team planned on the first weekend of June. We're going down to Newquay, so that would be a good experience for us, not only sort of riding down as a team and spending the weekend in a static caravan together, but to get some footage outside of where we usually sort of skate as well. So that's probably going to motivate us to try stuff we don't usually do, and so hopefully from that we'll get maybe sort of like a skate trip edit, and then that can then be sort of added into the main edit once we eventually get there.
Oh, awesome.
The
Now,
edit so far
this
is
is
great.
the first time I'm going to reveal this. We've not yet spoken about this on the podcast, and you've tickled. You tickled. So you say you did that sound from it. We are exactly the same. We had our mini DV camera, and we used to go out to the skate park, and we obviously get the special adapter and the different board that to go in the back of the computer to plug the mini DV in and then watch it all through. And we made the same thing. We made a full-length video with a load of the local riders. One of my mates from America made a part a lot, and
That's amazing.
We've also sort of been dabbling in the media side of it, and Jack in particular put together a DVD. And we made when we were 13, 14, we made a full length, like 50-minute, hour-long DVD. There's one copy somewhere.
I have a
I really want to get
the
upload
case.
it.
I have the DVD case, and for years I don't know where the DVD is, and it really freaking bothers me. I just wish that
It was a labour of love, wasn't it? They really were labours of love.
Yeah.
All I want to say is, obviously, to the listeners, like I mentioned before, if this is your first time listening, go back and listen to all the other episodes, because they have been amazing, and I've been enjoying catching up with you guys, and obviously through the medium of voice and things like that. And you've had the episodes about Tony Hawk's and the punk rock, which has been great for me. I do also want to mention that I have set up a discount code for the podcast listeners. So if you do go to the Was That Switch website, which is www.wasthatswitch.com, and if you enter crap20 at the checkout, you can get 20% off anything. So
that's incredibly generous.
That's
Thank
amazing.
you so much, Francis.
No, that's fine.
We will.
On I go.
That.
When's payday?
Considering the fact that you've been entertaining me through my my laborious work week. So.
Well, thank you so much for coming on, mate.
It's been a joy. And thank you so much.
Yeah, and anyone who's listening, head on to the UKSC and you can see Francis in action.
Cool. Right. Take it easy, fellas.
If you love skateboarding but you're just not very good at jumping up and down on your favorite piece of wood,